going to change subjects and talk about possibly one of the most important foundations for that transition, which is sustainable communities. And Amanda, where are you? Oh, you're there. I was slightly panicking because I hadn't seen you. It is my great pleasure, come on up, to welcome Amanda Mckenzie, who is the CEO of Business in the Community, who do incredible work. And Amanda is our keynote for sustainable communities.
Thank you very much. Always a terrifying notion being a keynote, and I thought I might have a doodah to put this on, but I haven't, so I'm going to stand here like this. And as I get older, I write things down because, one, I'm scared I'll forget them, but more importantly, I'm scared I'm going to get either over-emotional and go off-piste because so much of this stuff really matters. And I'm just going to have a very quick question first. 8.91, £8.91. Does anyone know what that means? It's the current living wage per hour. So just have that figure in your mind as I now give my speech. Thank you for inviting me to talk about how our communities are vital for business, just as businesses are vital for communities. And I couldn't possibly stand up here without mentioning COP. I have had the clean test and all of that good stuff. In a week where the world has committed to reduce methane, stop deforestation, and make it compulsory for companies to report on their net zero plans, I want to say, do all of this, but don't leave anyone behind. It's like losing weight by only eating chocolate. It's possible, you can, but ultimately you're just creating other problems and unintended consequences further down the line. So as we stop making combustion cars or gas boilers, let's make sure those who currently use their skills to build them can build electric cars or air source boilers instead. As we design products that are significantly decarbonised, think about those that won't be able to afford them. And as we build in more and more restrictions for the supply chain companies because we won't work with them because they're nowhere near net zero carbon, think about how we can partner with them and help them on their journey rather than just dismissing them because people work for them. And fundamentally, let's consider our communities as we tackle the climate emergency so we don't accidentally level down when we all know we want to level up. 150 or so years ago, companies like Cadbury and Lever looked after their workers by providing housing or healthcare. It was usually because the company was owned by the founder and they had an immense sense of duty and obligation to their workers. They knew it was vital and, yes, enlightened self-interest to keep their workers healthy and feeling valued. It was very much in the spirit of the day and effectively patriarchal philanthropy at work, but nonetheless, that relationship of doing well by doing good existed. Once company ownership structures changed and became more complex, we've had 80 or so years when this has become more muddled. But now, I believe, with the rush to ESG, and hopefully genuine ESG, we are genuinely thinking about our communities, embracing our employees, not literally, and being all too aware that restoring nature around us is just as vital as our well-being as the planet. In fact, I would summarise the past year and a half in one phrase. Business is back in the community. In one giant real-life lesson, we all realised what was on our doorstep and just how the rush to globalisation has obscured just how vital our neighbours and the health of our locality are. A Business in the Community, founded 40 years ago by the Prince of Wales, we've been levelling up for decades, thinking about the power of business to transform communities and help them thrive, but also really helping business see just how intrinsically linked they are and encouraging business not to ignore what is on their doorstep. And in the case of multinational businesses, of course, their doorstep is far and wide beyond the office of their head office. For large companies that have an obvious association with a particular town, they are usually a bit quicker to consider how the community around them is vital to them. But for smaller towns with no dominant large businesses, creating a coalition of business community organisations, the local chambers and the local council is when the magic can happen. So we at Business in the Community have seen this magic firsthand. We've been working in Blackpool, for instance, for several years. 5 years ago, one of our trustees very passionately asked for us to engage on a greater scale in Blackpool and think of it as a blueprint to help change the fortunes of other areas. The life chances of a working class boy in that seaside town being profoundly worse than someone from near here. As luck would have it, Baroness Jo Valentine was just finishing Chief Exec of London First and wanted a job at the sharp end to make a difference on the ground. We felt she could help a coordination of all interested parties and drive that coalition. But a baroness from London can't just turn up wanting to help. So one winter's evening, in an Italian restaurant in Blackpool, with the deputy head of the council, we had supper. The principle being, if the council felt they could trust Jo and work with her, we would have a strategic lead who could fund to help drive that coalition. The deputy head reminded me only a few weeks ago that I said to him, would you be offended if we wanted to help? I mention it because people talk about collaboration, they rarely really embrace it. Jo, the Baroness, and Alan, the deputy head of the council, have done just that. And to jump to the end of the sentence on this one, Business in the Community and Blackpool worked together to produce a town prospectus, a strategy for its rejuvenation. It's now the beneficiary of £700 million of funding and another £1 billion coming down the tracks. The Conservative Party will have their spring forum there, and some of the long-term issues of housing stock, transport and town centre renovation are all happening. The town now has a clear action plan leading to 2030. So we have now worked in similar, but not exactly the same, ways in many places, and we dare to believe that we know how to do this. I could talk on this far longer than I have, so I've indulged in the specifics, hopefully to make the point that concerted, collaborative, genuinely collaborative effort over time is always needed. Concepts are the easy bit. You need grit and determination to think through what needs to be done. You must bring everyone on the journey and never give up. That's happened in our left behind places far too often. That is the role business can play in our communities as we look to restore them. And coming back to where I started, as we all clamber for a climate-positive world, and isn't that so much nicer than net zero, where my plea is to leave no one behind in the process, how we work in our communities and how business genuinely engages will be the difference. So all power to you in your endeavours to ensure that we can do this. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Did you have supper in Blackpool or did you have tea?
No, it was Italian. I had a pizza, I think.
Just checking, because, up north, you tend to have tea, which is very confusing. I'm a northerner, and you come down south. It's very, very confusing. That was brilliant, and I really take the point about climate positive as well, because it's certainly something at Forum for the Future we've been writing about. Net zero is really, really important, but it's a milestone to get to what we would call a just and regenerative future, and that just bit is really important, because often that whole community side, the equity side, it's just an add-on to the kind of focus on climate. So if you could write a letter to policymakers today, and I think you probably write them on a daily basis, but what's your ask of the governments at COP right now to ensure that this transition does put equity at its heart and delivers a regenerative and just future?
Well, think about some of the things I've just talked about. Join up in a way that we've never joined up before. So that let's just think about how these things come together. Where is the Great Venn diagram and what's happening in the middle of it? So I would say that. I would say think about SMEs. They're going to be vital in all of this. And just think about your policies for everybody and how does that work, and almost solve it for the person that's going to struggle the most before you solve it for what may appear to be mass market or indeed people that have lots of money. Let's just think that through and then hopefully the creative thinking will come off the back of that. Very specifically around how you level up and therefore don't leave anyone behind, then, it's all written up in longhand on our website, but, find that strategic lead, invest and be prepared to invest over time, pull together all the right parties, genuinely work together. It's not rocket science, is it? But people rarely do it in a concerted way over time and just kind of dig in and get on with it. Great. I don't know about you, but I'm fed up with all this lofty talk of the we must. It's like, what have we done? What are we doing? What has been achieved,
Yeah, absolutely. A vision or a blueprint or whatever you want to call it is nothing without those proof points that you can make that journey. Amanda, thank you very much for joining us. I also love the fact that you said, don't ever give up. And that really resonates with me because this stuff is hard. So when you all feel like giving up,
don't.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you. Okay, that was brilliant. We're now going to hear from the Bootcamp host, who's Andrew Wordsworth. This is what happens when you don't meet people beforehand. Andrew, are you here? Yes, marvellous. Andrew is the managing partner of Sustainable Ventures, and he is your host for the Bootcamp this afternoon. Take it away.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone. As I say, I'm Andrew Wordsworth. I'm the managing partner and co-founder of Sustainable Ventures, and we're delighted to host the Bootcamp this afternoon at our sustainable workspace in Old County Hall. For those of you who don't know County Hall, it's the one with the London Eye in front of it. It's the building behind that. So, and that forms the sort of the heart of our ecosystem. So Sustainable Ventures, we believe in the power of commercial innovation to overcome climate change and resource scarcity. Over the last 10 years, we've worked with over 300 clean tech companies, it's startups and scale-ups, and our mission is by 2025 to have supported up to 1,000 clean tech companies. In doing so, we've created the largest cluster of sustainable startups across Europe. We're a values-driven business, obviously sustainable and commercial are key ones, but as sort of executive entrepreneurs ourselves, we sort of drive our sort of values around that. As we support people, and particularly important for the theme of this is the sort of collaborative approach we take in how we do things. I like a sort of climate, very similar focus themes. In the long run, everything needs to be sustainable. Every single good, service, product needs to be net zero. But we focus on 5 verticals. And the interesting thing about these is most of them are going through a complete revolution. If you take agri-tech and food, that's been for thousands of years. We've had the same system of producing food and landscape. We're now seeing, animal feed proteins, a complete revolution in how how that sector is going to look over the next 10, 20 years. Similar on mobility. This move from sort of internal combustion engines through to electrification, circular economy, moving from that kind of linear economy to both through sort of business model innovation, but increasingly through new materials and so on. And future energy is the one that most people tend to historically associate with sort of renewables and so on. But that sort of move away from centralized generation, distributed, digitized, that whole industry is going to be transformed. Most importantly, we believe that financial returns do not need to be compromised in order to pursue strong environmental and social impact. In fact, because of the transitions that are happening there, if you aren't moving towards that kind of sustainable goods and services, in the long run, you will have no market. And we're very much seeing that. I think, obviously, climate and the finance people will show that there's increasing evidence that that is the case. So what we do, I've mentioned the workspace sites. We've got 2 side of things, which is a host currently to around about 40 or 45 clean tech companies. By next year, we'll be hosting over 1,000 people at our workspace in County Hall, and we'll be looking to expand into sort of northern cities such as Manchester and West Yorkshire. We support various things. I won't go into them in immense detail, but we also have one of the most active pre-seed investment funds. We've made 30 investments over the last 4 years into companies. And we'll be picking up on this, I think, this afternoon. This is our kind of ecosystem. So rather than thinking about sort of Series A, Series B, pre-seed, all the sort of financial language, we think about the stage of development of a company. And we basically work from all the way from beer mat all the way through to exit, whether that's working on a venture lab to create new companies, tackling affordable warmth, for example, through to a corporate program we deliver, for example, with Schneider Electric, to develop the next generation of net zero home products and services that they can sell to new housing developers. Most excitingly, and the reason I sort of do this job, is we get to see what's coming down the road. We get to see real solutions. There's talk about sort of, how glass making is going to be revolutionised, how we need to replace glasses. We're seeing companies that are addressing those solutions through sort of biomaterials and so on. So we get to see the future as it's coming down the road. One of the questions we want to do is, are we missing anything? Because we have over 300 companies in that's the ecosystem. It's probably about 3,000 on a wider contact basis. We surround that with a wide range of stakeholders, governments, universities, NGOs, and corporates in particular, plus the investment community. So what we do is try and bring all those things together to create that acceleration platform. We think it works. In our investment portfolio, 95% of companies are still trading after 3 years, which compares to 50% sort of typical average. So again, you'll be very welcome to come and join us at Sustainable County Hall, just over the river, and so it's a 20-minute walk, so we're looking to see how we can do that and how we can maybe encourage people to sort of replicate that, whether it's built around a place, a community organisation, whether it's built around a corporate, for example, or a group of corporates tackling a particular sector, and just to sort of think how we can sort of, again, have we missed anything? How can we make this, and how can we accelerate innovation to tackle climate change and resource scarcity?
So that's the pitch from the host keynote, and we've now got 2 co-host pitchers. Up first is Timo. That's someone else moving there. You're here, brilliant. If you could stick to your 5 minutes, that would be great.
I will try it.
Okay, I'll keep my eye on you.
Welcome in London, the place where James Bond saved the world so many, many times. And now it's up to us to become also double zero agents to protect the world. So Kyoto Protocol was set up in 1997. In 1 month, almost 24 years later, the next generation, like my 13-year-old daughter, asked me why we still sit in conference rooms and halls and talk about targets we do not follow. We stuck in a vacuum of climate action. Some scientists says that maybe 1 billion years ago, more or less, we had the same issue of CO2 on the planet. When we started to crawl out of the water, we have to wait. We have to wait until the world was green enough and captured enough CO2 so we were able to breathe. Steve Jobs had 1,000 songs in his pocket on the presentation like this, only in Apple. I'm wearing right now 1,000 kilograms of CO2 in this t-shirt, only by planting 1 mangrove. The t-shirt footprint for lifetime has maybe 3 to 5 kilograms of CO2 emission. We already plant a mangrove always when we produce a t-shirt. So the mangrove is a miracle tree. It will absorb up to 1,000 kilograms of CO2 emission within the next 20 years. Put it in the mud without any oxygen. Therefore, we use a simple system, a kind of indulgence trade, only in good. I am in the apparel industry since 2000, I guess, and helped change the system with a wide variety of solutions. The solution behind SOMWR is a different one, because it's up to the customers to create a platform and a community. Sorry. And here a British band said, boy group, mentioned once ago, baby, you can drive my car. So I have no idea, or not too much ideas about the car industry, but ex-industry knowledge is welcome to make the change. And as you can hear, maybe you can see, but hopefully you can feel, I will not miss any opportunity to bring about change. Maybe all of you know the butterfly effect. Do you know what happened to the system in which a small flap of a tiny, tiny wing changed the whole, simply because it's happened? Isn't it amazing how each one of us, also you yesterday, really each one of us with a little bit of common sense, with a little bit of certain amount of empathy, and a sense of responsibility only for your neighbor, can turn negative into positive things and part of a real community. Yesterday, only 6 degrees outside, so it was really cold on the river. We show that it's quite easy to fish simply rubbish out of the Thames. And the last 2 days here, we have seen maybe the brightest minds of our time who create and develop products with less negative impact or no impact for future generations. And in between, our team in Bangkok picked up 1.1 kilo ocean plastic for each item we sold. Today it's a t-shirt, maybe tomorrow it's a glass. Yeah, but if every person would buy a t-shirt, John Lennon would say, imagine everybody would buy it, it will solve the plastic ocean pollution. So my name is Timo Perschke, an earthling, about 7.8 billion people, and my biggest aim is if I can, and I want to avoid that my kids do the same mistakes I've done. So if you want to join our movement, you are welcome to meet us at our bootcamp. And in 1 week, you can go to Marseille and help with us cleaning beaches and do it, and really do it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So we, I think, now have 2 people making the final pitch on behalf of the co-host. Is that right? Yes. Oh my gosh, you've only got 2.5 minutes each. So I'm really happy to welcome up Nicoline Wöhrle, Head of Communications from Dr. Hauschka, lovely brand, by the way, and Daniela, designer and co-owner of Felder, also a very nice brand. Ladies, you really do only have 5 minutes. Talk quickly.
Okay, we are going to be quick. We are very happy to be here and very excited to be co-hosts of the community Bootcamp. And maybe some of you might be wondering, what is a beauty brand and a fashion brand doing here between all these tech and automotive and finance corporations? But that's exactly what we would like to show you today. Because, and by the way, when we were talking about eating credit cards, 1 credit card per week, just think about your skin. That is our largest organ, and all the products you use on your skin go directly into your body, just on a side note. So you see there is not much difference because we all have to change the way we are doing business. And it's fundamental to everything we do. We are all connected. We could see that during the pandemic, that was already mentioned before. And it's important that we really speed up and work together in communities. And that's also something about our collaboration. It was the focus of our work we were doing together from the very beginning. And when we were preparing the bootcamp, Daniela created a nice poem, and she will talk about that. And that is our pitch, actually, for the bootcamp later on.
All right, okay. Thank you, Nicoline. Okay, so basically, in a world based on exclusivity, we found beauty in inclusivity, because only together we can create the changes we would like to see, where all forms of life, from humans, nature to animals, are all allowed to be. And basically, you know, we have to take in consideration that all forms of life are equal, and that we as humans have the responsibility. Nature and animals don't harm us, but we harm natures, we harm animals, and we harm humans. So we really have to take the responsibility with our choices to create a community that we want to see. And I'm really grateful that Nicoline asked me to be the co-host today for our community bootcamp, because, you know, I really feel like we work already on that level together, and I think, you know, we can really, you know, like, have to bring it to a more global level. And yeah, maybe you want to talk a little bit about the way you work.
That's actually the pitch of the bootcamp. That's what we would like to work on this afternoon, to put our vision about communities and working in communities on a global scale. And we invite you all to join us, and we would be very happy to see you this afternoon with us.
Thank you very much. Weren't they marvellous? What I really liked about that, and I'm going to get into trouble because we are over time, but I really liked the way you brought that down to a personal level. And, you know, we've talked a lot about climate and the climate emergency today, but ultimately this is a human story. And as humans, we are so dependent on the health of our planet. And if we can build healthy humans and healthy communities, we'll go a long way to making that transition. So thank you very much indeed. You were amazing. Give them a round of applause.
Thank you.